Hello, beautiful people. My name's Kristen. Thanks for stopping by my channel to hear all about my current reads in the month of April. I didn't get around to doing a TBR, so this is going to just kind of be all put together in what I will read, what I am reading, what's going on. And I have to say, I started out with a huge disappointment, y'all. I don't know why this keeps happening to me. I had been anticipating and really looking forward to reading Patrick Rothfuss' Name of the Wind. This is a really popular, beloved, classic fantasy book that is not finished. And so I had been hesitating because I knew the series wasn't finished and wasn't planned to be finished anytime soon, but I decided I'm ready to experience it. And I pushed through to page 200, but this is not the book for me. It's a story of a young boy who doesn't really have parents' identity, that traditional kind of quest setup where he's looking for not only trying to get purpose and fortune and save the world, but he's not even trying to save the world. There is like nothing substantial going on. I mean, he's going through these adventures, he's meeting people, but nothing really. And the magic system with the wind isn't developed enough for me. I just y'all I can't really recommend that one. So I shifted gears and said, I need to find another fantasy, and I went with one that is slated for young adults. So Laini Taylor's Strange the Dreamer, and this hit the mark. So if you ever get into a rut with fantasy, or you're wanting some really unique perspectives, this world, basically, this is the story of another world situation where there are gods that are blue and have different magical abilities. Each one kind of has one magic gifting. And the cover is a moth because the moth is the manifestation of being able to go into people's dreams. And so that's one of the giftings, but there's all kinds of different giftings. And there again is a boy who again doesn't really fully know his background and is trying to figure out his own identity, where he came from. But this time he's discovering the magic within himself, doesn't understand it, what's going on, comes in contact with a bunch of other people that have to also journey with him, work through that. And there is a city and then kind of a floating city. And it really does a great job of sucking you in, not only caring about a lot of the characters, but the nuances about the prejudice or the fears against the two different situations, what's going on, how do we assign value, how are things more valued than other things, what happens to people if their gift or their ability isn't as good as the other one. It had quite a bit of spice level for a young adult. I thought, that when it had a romance, it was a little fiery. I really, I didn't mind that. It's not my favorite, but I didn't mind that. And I was so invested. I will also tell you that this book, which isn't totally a small book, is a duology. And it ends on a massive cliffhanger. It does not tie it up for you so that you can I'll wait another year or whatever before I get around to the next one. I downloaded on audio the next one and listened to it to and from work for a week until I had finished that one off too. Muse of Nightmares, that's these two, and then that's the complete story of this. She also has a spin-off of different characters with different books within the same universe, kind of like Brandon Sanderson has the Cosmere. I'm not sure what she calls her universe. If I can find it, maybe I'll put it down here. But it's a really interesting world. It has really, I think, unique takes on the abilities, what's going on, what are the choices, all that kind of good stuff. find it very entertaining and engaging, and obviously a good, easy, light reading level when it's geared towards young adults. I started out reading Studs Terkel's Talking to Myself as my nonfiction for the month. And this is they say it's a memoir, but it's not a traditional memoir. It isn't telling about his life. If you're not familiar with Studs Terkel, because I don't know that he's all that famous, but he is a writer, and he wrote 3 or 4 main novels before this, where he was really doing a deep dive into Americana life. It's very similar in some ways to James Joyce, The Dubliners, just taking one American blue-collar, normal person and doing a deep dive into their life and showing these little vignettes. And that was one of his books. Working was made into a musical called Working, and that was basically a whole series of who America is and how it works together and runs on the backs of the workers. And it's a fantastic musical. So I had read Working, but I haven't read anything else by him, but I was really interested in his life. But this is just literally him talking to himself. It became kind of stream of consciousness. I think I only made it to about page 40, and I decided I wasn't really in the mood for this stream of consciousness. Hey, let me tell you about this thing I just remembered. Hey, let me tell you about that thing I just remembered. And they were interesting in themselves, but because they didn't tie in and they didn't really have a point that he was trying to make, I wasn't really in the mood for that. So I'm not getting rid of this, but I decided that wasn't what I was in the mood for. Ironically, the next book I picked up was another nonfiction, because I wanted to have for sure a nonfiction. So I picked up Joy Haryo's Catching the Light. She is a beautiful poet, predominantly Native American, beautiful spirit and aspect of perspective on life that is just really profound. This book is her kind of nonfiction musings about why she writes and how the poetry comes about and comes out of her. And she spent quite a bit of time of the book reflecting on her identity and her nationality and ties to those around her and culture around her, as far as poetry being an expression of that. And there is a quote in here that I want to read y'all that I just find so very gripping, specifically about her nationality. And it says, "There are many corpses on the back of this country, and we will continue to carry them until we have the right tools, the right words to bury them, so that the fertile human field of becoming can flower with justice and equality." And I just had to sit there and sit with that for a really long time. That thought of, she's explaining not only her personal history, but American history, and how particularly the Native Americans, right, but all minority groups over time continued to be treated. And that image, that poetry, that gift of poems that she has about that image of carrying around dead corpses until we find the tools to be free. I just thought that was really a gripping thing. Wanted to share that. That was amazing. Quick little book, although not one that you want to rush through. Then ironically, and I say this because isn't it weird how books get tied in together, even though we had no idea they were going to be tied in together? So for my classic of the month, I decided I was going to knock off another Penguin Cloth Bound, and I was going to read this one, Lawrence Stearne, The Life and Opinions of Tristan Shandi, Gentleman. So this one has really, really short chapters that were originally published in like a newspaper, and it was, again, a very stream of consciousness. It's all about this Tristan Shandi. He is explaining his existence and his life, and it kind of sums up in some way, saying that it took till chapter 10 before he was even officially born. Like, he had to explain about his mom made his dad get up during conceiving him to check to make sure everything was locked up and the house was good. So this kind of very random. I really And again, note, I had just read those other books. I was already in that mind where I wasn't necessarily jiving with that style of writing. I mean, in general, there's a time and place for that for me, but that kind of stream of consciousness just hears life randomly where the story's not really developing or going anywhere. I like that kind of character story, but I wasn't necessarily in that place again. So I think my analysis, here's my theory, because this supposedly was really, really popular when it was first published. And I think, have you ever like had that thing where there's been like a little campy movie or something that has come out where there was a bunch of one-liners and then everybody started quoting the one-liners and started talking about the little scenes so that they became inside jokes and everybody was in the know, and it was just like one of those things that became part of the culture and funny. I think that's probably what was happening with this publication. It's these quirky, funny, silly things that I can very easily see myself working in if a wide population, people around me were also reading this and being exposed to it. I would make inside jokes about it, like, oh, well, I don't know if we need to go check to make sure the oven wasn't left on, that kind of thing. But this is pretty chunky, and I just decided, you know what? Not in the mood for that either. It was disappointing month in so many ways. And then I picked up Wilke Collins' A Rogue's Life. It is short. Wilke Collins never disappoints me. He's one of my very favorite classic authors. And so I'm currently reading this. Can't tell you about it yet. Currently reading that. And then I'm also currently reading The Wiregrass by Pam Webber. This is a buddy read that I'm doing with my good friend Berna at BERNA'S Bookish Adventures. And the book tells the story of a family of children cousins in Alabama summer, the wiregrass, the swampiness, the part-time jobs, the getting into trouble and up to no good, and then they come in contact with another mysterious boy who basically takes them down a road of mystery and thriller, and there's some bad things going on in the backwoods kind of thing. So I think this is going to be a really fun offset to all the other things that I have been reading, really enjoying the buddy read. So those are the two things that I am currently reading, and those were the things that I have read up to this point. Leave me a comment below if you've read any of them, if you want to read any of them, if you definitely don't want to read any of them. That would be awesome. I love meeting y'all in the comments below. Hope that you have a beautiful day, that you are finding all the good things that are working for you this month. Happy reading, y'all. Take care.